noticed how much negativity there is in the world today? Have you noticed how negative we are? I mean, look at the newspaper. It's always full of negativity. There isn't a lot of positive in the news. And I would take it one step further. I think you like to out-negative one another. You ever notice this? Somebody comes up to you and goes, man, I've had this cold for a week. I had a cold for 7 years once. We'd love to take it up a notch. I have a motorcycle. I tell people having a motorcycle, you know what they want to tell me? Somebody they know that died on a motorcycle. I don't really need that information. I have looked back over the things that I feel I've been successful at, and I was like, what were the combination of things that I did to help me to be successful? I realized that everything I did in my life, whether it be a job or a volunteer opportunity or in my family or whatever it might be, I really tried to do the best I could. If I didn't feel equipped, I tried to get better at it, to be the best that I could in that job. And then at the same time, I tried to make the process fun. Everything we do is a process. When you came to this conference, you engaged in a process. If you had to fly, you had to buy your tickets. You had to go to the airport. You had to get on the plane. It was a process. Everything is a process. But here's the cool thing, is when you break down processes into steps, you can attack each step and effectively try to improve it or make it more fun. CEO of Southwest Airlines said if work was more fun, it wouldn't feel so much like work. What a concept. I believe that if we have a little fun in what we're doing, we're going to be more productive. We're going to put more effort into it. We're going to want to work. We're going to want to contribute. Because psychologically, I'd rather do things that I enjoy. One of the things that I had to do on a regular basis in quality improvement was to do chart reviews. I hated doing chart reviews. They were just boring. So what I started doing was looking for funny things in the medical record. Now, you should do this sometimes. I mean, if you have to do chart review, do this sometimes, because you'll be amazed at what people write. These are actual medical records that were discovered in medical records. These are actual entries. This first one was a physician wrote this. It said, patient refused autopsy. This one, it said, patient was referred to a hospital by a private physician with green stools. This was on a prescription for suppositories. Insert one daily until exhausted. Large brown BM walking down the hall. And my all-time favorite, vaginal packing out, Dr. N. Now see? And so the goal is to break down the processes that are either causing problems or are boring or mundane or stressful, to break down those processes and look at the steps and say, where are the steps flawed? Where can I improve a certain step, or where can I make a certain step more fun? Let me see a show of hands. How many have been to the Hoover Dam? Maybe half of you. Right, the Hoover Dam was one of those places like Mount Rushmore for me that when I got there, I was just overwhelmed. This is amazing. And when we went one time as a family, we got in the side door somehow. I think we missed the entrance, and we went in a side door. And we end up at this counter, and there's a woman sitting behind the counter, and we're not sure where we're supposed to get tickets for the tour, so we walk up this counter, and we're just politely standing there. Have you ever been in that situation and the person doesn't acknowledge you? So we're standing there waiting, and finally I just went, and the woman looked up and goes, do you want to go on the damn tour? And I was a little taken aback, and I said, pardon me? She said, do you want a ticket for the damn tour? Well, at this point, I was like, hell yeah. That's the way it is here. Damn straight. So this is, what I found out was this is their little joke. This is their joke, all right? So if you're out on the tour and somebody wanders off, the tour guide will go, get back on the damn tour. And everybody laughs. And I think that's wonderful because they're communicating with humor. The do it well part of stress management or attitude adjustment is you've got to work on your perspective. And so what I do is when I feel myself getting tense or I get that knot in my stomach or I start to feel sweaty or I feel hot, those symbols that or symptoms that are telling me something's going on, I pay attention to what am I thinking that's leading to this and how can I change that? But here's the better part, in my opinion, is that humor is one of the greatest tools to manage the change of perspective and to manage stress that there is out there. Freud said it was the highest level of coping mechanism that we have. And here's how it worked. Humor does two very important things for us to help us manage stress. First and foremost is it balances stress. When you're in the midst of something stressful, if you can laugh in the midst of it, the stress can't overwhelm you. It just can't. You've created a buffer by laughing, by experiencing something funny. And that's putting the stress at a little bit greater distance from you so it won't personally affect you. The second part of it is that humor, by its very nature, forces us to see things from a new perspective. I have a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, and I know what some of you are thinking right now. You don't look like you have a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. You look more like a nerd. But I'm a cool nerd because I have a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. So once a year, I go on this 4-day ride with my brother and a couple other family members. I live right outside of Washington, D.C., so I'm driving down to the southern part of Virginia. And I'm near Roanoke, Virginia, and I'm about 15 miles north of Roanoke, Virginia on a 4-lane divided highway. And I'm going 60 when a car, or truck rather, on the other side of the road makes a left-hand turn in front of me. And I didn't see him soon enough. There was no way that I could stop before I got to him. I slammed on both brakes. I slid in a straight line around the front of the truck, so I did not hit the truck. But then I ran out of highway, and I'm on the shoulder. My brain just checked out, and then I awoke to a grinding noise. And it turns out the grinding noise was my face in the gravel. Now, I had a mouthful of gravel. I was absolutely convinced that my teeth were gone. And just to show you how vain I was, because I speak for a living, I immediately jumped up, went over to my motorcycle to the mirror to see how bad it was. Now, I had a huge gash, a really deep, huge gash on my chin. And then from here down was just road rash. It was just scarred up, and it was bloody and chewed up. I realized that the next 3 or 4 hours was going to be awful. And so I purposely chose to try to make it better. And so I started looking for funny things. Because I thought, if there are funny things around here, I could actually make my experience a little better. First thing I noticed, my motorcycle landed in the yard of a towing company. No towing charges. And then there was an EMT, emergency medical technician, standing right there in the yard of the towing company. He saw the whole thing. He runs over to me immediately and he goes, "What day is it?" And I looked at him and I said, "Dude, look at my face. This doesn't really matter whether it's Wednesday or Thursday." And apparently sarcasm is a sign of head trauma. He made me lie down. So the ambulance got there, and they put me on the board, the back board, and they put a neck brace around me just as a precaution. I'd been up and around. I didn't think there was anything wrong, but it's just a precaution. And then they strapped me in and sped off to the hospital. So I get to the hospital. There's no room for me. There's not a room available. So they park me in a hallway. They just park me in the hallway, and I'm laying there on this gurney, and I'm just staring up at the ceiling. I can't move anything. And then they leave me. And nobody is there with me. And after a couple of minutes of this, as I'm just laying there like this, strapped to this board, it occurs to me for the first time in my life, I am claustrophobic. And I cannot get out of this situation. I can feel my heartbeat increase. I can feel my breathing start to increase. And so I'm laying there, I'm going, excuse me. And I can't turn to see if there's anybody there. I can feel the wind of people as they go by me. It just kind of blows against my head like this. I can feel that there's somebody there, but I don't know who it is. And finally, I'm like, excuse me, like this. And finally, an aide comes over. And she says, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I'm losing it. You're going to have to unstrap my legs. You just unstrap my legs, I'll be fine, but I cannot stay here strapped to this board." Well, of course, she doesn't have the authority to unstrap me, so she had to go find somebody. Came back a few minutes, unstrapped me, and it was just this huge burden lifted off of me at that moment. So then about that time, a room opened. They wheeled me into one of these ER rooms. So I'm in the room, and the physician comes in. The attending physician comes in. He pokes his head in and says, "Hey, how you doing?" Which is such an odd question to ask somebody in an emergency room. I mean, my face is all bloody. I'm laying there on a gurney. He says, "How are you?" Obviously not good. But I said to him, well, it occurs to me that my father was wiser than I thought, because my father used to always tell me, "Keep your chin up." And I'm not kidding you. The doctor looked at me and goes, "Righto," and then left. So they took me to x-ray to make sure nothing was broken, and I'm fine. I get back. Now it comes time they have to sew up my chin. But they have to clean it first. So the nurse is cleaning my chin with, I think, sterile saline and number 4 sandpaper. And she is working on this thing. And I said to her right in the middle of the cleaning, I said, do you think after I get my facial, I could get a pedicure? And she laughed. And here's the dynamic that occurred. From that point on, because the physician assistant was also in the room, from that point on, the atmosphere totally changed, both for them and for me. They started joking with me. The conversation shifted. It was no longer just about the care. We're talking about a variety of things. And for the next hour or so that I continued to be in the ER, it was a very pleasant experience, or as pleasant as it could be in that situation. Now look where I could have gone after that. I could have gone to that place of, I almost died. And I would have been one of those people for 6 months. Every time I talked to somebody, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I almost died. We know from the literature that if you put people in a brainstorming session and you show them something funny first, they will come up with more ideas because you've jump-started their brain in a creative way. Humor, by its very nature, makes us look at the world differently. And if the whole problem with stress is that we've got the wrong perspective, humor actually helps us to see another option, to see another perspective. So my belief is you've got to start looking for the humor. You've got to bring more humor into your life actively, proactively, as a tool. Don't just wait for it to happen. Make it happen. If you do things well and then you add a little fun, it's a magic combination. And I'll just give you this suggestion to think about this magic combination. If you ever had a boss who was really good at what he or she did but was fun to be around, you would do anything for that person. You wanted to work. You wanted to produce. And so I'm going to suggest to you that you think about that in your roles, in your leadership roles. How are you creating a foundation of excellence, and how are you making the process and the environment more enjoyable for the people that you work with or who work for you? If you create a work environment where people are having a good time in addition to producing good products, good services, good outcomes, you are going to get good people and you will keep good people.